Hey guys, Dylan from Noble Records coming at you with another video. I've seen a lot of lists of top debut albums of all time, so I thought I would break mine out of the top debut albums in my opinion. Now, bear this in mind, this is based on my personal preference and opinion. I'm not saying that these are everyone's best, and if you don't like them, you're wrong. I'm just saying this is what I personally connect with, and I think are important albums in the major big picture of where music has progressed. The way I've kind of picked these were bands that or albums that were genre defining, that changed the world, that inspired people, albums that are really important and also just really good. So those were just kind of what I was thinking when I was going and picking these records. Before we get into it, if you guys haven't subscribed to my channel, hit that subscribe button. That would help me out a ton, help me keep making videos. And if you have Instagram, follow us on Instagram. We have a record shop in Matthews, North Carolina, where we're always buying big collections and showing cool albums that we're getting and recommending albums that are coming out. So check out those things. Anyways, so coming in at number 20, won't waste any more time, is Lynyrd Skynyrd, pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd. Now this was a staple, me growing up in the South. That is on the Sounds of the South label, which is the original first label. I'm going to be showing a lot of these on vinyl, the ones I have at least on vinyl. Just that's the format I personally enjoy, and it's easier to hold up a record than it is a CD. So, but pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd was just the amazing culmination of all these incredible musicians and songwriters that just had a really unique and tight bond. There's a lot of documentaries and stuff about them, but had some great, incredible songs. This is a really good album cover. They had been shooting this album cover all day. Rosington actually vomited right after the picture was taken, but you can see a little lightning bolt in the background they kind of captured. Amazing songs on this. Tuesday's Gone, Free Bird. It's, some unbeatable, timeless, classic songs on pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd. At number 20, 1973. Number 19, I'm embarrassed that I don't have this on vinyl. I've had it a million times. Like I said, I own a shop, so I see it all the time. I'm waiting to get like a promo copy or something really nice, but that's Boston, 1976. It's an album that from start to finish is phenomenal. It was recorded in a basement. I think they said, they recorded it for a few $1,000s, and most albums with that level of production quality cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But just absolute incredible Hammond organ action on the 4-play long time. Oh my gosh, it does not get any better than that. For me, classic rock, just Boston, especially that first album, is just like quintessential classic rock, but it was so well written and so well put together, such a tight album. Number 18 is Television, Marquee Moon. This is a really, really cool record, and I really like it because earlier on when I was, I didn't listen to punk rock as a kid. I listened to like classic rock and Zeppelin, Stones, Beatles, Lynyrd Skynyrd, stuff like that. And then in my teenage years, as I got a little older, I couldn't get just thrown right into punk. And this was one of those albums that really bridged the gap for me. This is Television. If you've never heard them, I would say that they're a mix between like the Cars and the Stooges. They have a real punk rock feel to them, but not so much, not like so much as the Sex Pistols or anything like that. Like, you can still really enjoy their music. It's well put together, really great guitar work, really well composed, but it still has that punk rock feel to it. So they were staples in the New York punk scene. They played at CBGB all the time. But this is just a phenomenal record with some great songs that really, I think, for a lot of people, bridges that gap between just regular rock and punk rock, and it does it effortlessly. Amazing record. Next one is Nirvana, Bleach. This is an album that blew me away when I was a kid the first time I heard it. 1989. The grunge was coming into full swing in Seattle, and Kurt Cobain kind of he said he felt like he was pushed into fitting into this grunge mold, and the night before they recorded Bleach, he wrote most of the lyrics to this, but it's very has a lot of elements of punk in it, but it's a very raw grunge album, and I think it is a staple in setting up grunge for what it would become. But a really important album, really incredible, and obviously, the debut of one of the greatest bands of all time, and Kurt Cobain as just an incredible songwriter. Number 16 is Big Star, #1 record. Now, there are a few records in here like this that you never heard on the radio. They were not huge records, but I think they were important records. Big Star, #1 record, came out in 1972. It's an incredible album that it did really well when it came out, like as far as like it was received really well. A lot of people really liked it, but it wasn't, they didn't make a lot of copies. It wasn't distributed well. So only 10,000 copies ever sold, which in the grand scheme of things is very low. And it instantly became a collector's item. Like the really deep record collectors and music aficionados were looking for this record, but it was the harmonies were incredible, the songwriting was incredible. If you've never heard this record and you've seen that 70s show, the theme song is on this record. 13 is a song on this record that it could be my favorite song. I'm telling you, go listen to the song 13 if you haven't heard it. It is just like, it makes me want to cry every time I hear it. It makes me feel like I'm a kid again. It's incredible, but very good songwriting, ahead of its time, incredible guitars, a beautiful, beautiful record. Big Star, #1 record. Now, number 15 is a little bit debatable, okay? But I threw it in here because I think it deserves it. And that is AC/DC, High Voltage. Now, on all of my lists that I was looking at and I was doing research, AC/DC wasn't on any of them. And I'm like, how? AC/DC, when it comes to classic rock, it's just, as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the staples. It's up there with Beatles, Stones, Zeppelin, all those. It's super important band from Australia. Here's why I think they weren't on any of the lists, because it's confusing, okay? So this is originally came out in Australia like this. This is the intro to AC/DC, the debut of AC/DC in Australia was this. This is an Australian pressing of High Voltage. Now, this came out in February 1975. Now, in 1976 was their international debut with this High Voltage. Now, these are not the same record. Very different track listing on this record than this record. But I think the birth of AC/DC deserves to be mentioned. Really great Australian classic rock band. So we're going to go with this one. And I will say, in Australia, between these two albums, this is an Australian pressing of TNT. This came out in late 1975. So we're just going to lump all that together because a lot of those songs are on there. It's a whole mosh-posh. But the international, what we know as High Voltage as a world, and not just Australia, is this version of High Voltage. And so that's what we're going to go off of. Sorry for that whole explanation if you didn't care to know that. But just really incredible. You guys have heard AC/DC, Bon Scott's vocals, the Young Brothers and their amazing guitar solos and the rhythm. It is in your face, awesome, steady, essential classic rock. Number 14 is the band, the music from Big Pink. If you didn't know the band, they backed up Bob Dylan before this record as the Hawks. This is what they called themselves. But they went to this Pink house here, and they made this record, music from Big Pink. Just an incredible album, very Americana rock type of feel to it. You guys know the song The Wait. It's on this record. That is one of those timeless songs it's just incredible every time. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves it, The Wait. But the rest of this album is really incredible and killer too. Very important record. And I think this is a record that has influenced a lot of musicians. It might not be, and there's songs that are on the radio from this record, but furthermore, it's one that really impacted a lot of musicians. So number 13 is Joy Division, Unknown Pleasures, 1979. This is a really cool record. It's different. It's dark. It's very emotional, but it was very unique for the time, the way that they did the record. This is both pre and post punk, depending on how you want to look at it, but also has like the beginnings of new wave elements in it. But nevertheless, really beautiful lyrics. Ian Curtis. Amazing stuff. You got to hear this if you haven't heard it. Number 12 is Rage Against the Machine, 1992. This is one of those albums that, man, it knocked my socks off first time I heard it, and it still does today. Just amazing fusion of everything from rap to metal to hard rock to punk. I mean, it has like a very charged, and I don't want to say political because that's such a four-letter word now, but a very highly energetic message to it. And it's these young guys that are really, whatever you think about the message that they're putting out there, they're doing it with all of their heart. Like, this is one of the most raw, hard-hitting, in-your-face, rebellious records of all time, and it's incredible. Rage Against the Machine, 1992. So this is Pearl Jam, number 10. Pearl Jam 10. Did I do that on purpose? Kinda. It was in the same area, so I had to. The order on these don't matter as much until you get to the top. But this is one I consider of this beautiful, beautiful record. Love this album so much. But it was grunge, but all the members of Pearl Jam were very, very proficient musicians. They honed their craft. They were very, very good. As far as I'm concerned with grunge, they were some of the best as far as like putting their music together. The most complicated players. They executed it well. Incredible songs. It's one of those albums I couldn't live without. Amazing. 1994, Pearl Jam 10. Coming in at number 9. I didn't see this on a lot of top debut, but I think this is Allman Brothers Band. Their first record, 1969. This is a white label promo. Whammy. Incredible record. And I think this was highly influential to a lot of people too. I've heard so many different bands say that the Allman Brothers Band was a huge influence because they were Southern rock, but not only were they Southern rock, they were several years before Skynyrd, but they just influenced so many people, and they were anywhere from like the deep Southern rock to Grateful Dead sound, and they had that jam band feel to it. All the players were out of this world. Dwayne Allman, Greg Allman, unreal. I mean, the rhythm section was incredible. They were off the charts. I mean, one of my absolute favorite bands, but this is an album that, you don't see high up on the list, but I think that a lot of musicians really drew a lot from this record when it first came out. And it's just, and even still today, that's one incredible record, the Allman Brothers Band, self-titled. Coming in at number 8 is Velvet Underground and Nico. This is one of those I would put in the category of extremely important. It did not do well when it first sold. I think 30,000 copies were originally sold. And every time I mention it, I got to tell you, the quote Brian Eno said, out of the 30,000 people that bought that record, every single one of them started a band. And that might be true because it's a very eccentric record, very different for that time. And you had to have a real artistic ear to really get it. But now we know it as timeless. The artwork is timeless. Andy Warhol did the artwork. I could talk about this record all day long, but I won't. So this is the unpeeled original press. Here's one that's a little bit more beat up. That is the peeled version. Well, it's someone's peeled the banana, and this is the original version with the band back cover. There's a lot to that. I will not get into it because that's not what this video is about. But incredible record. It's a little bit weird. It's art rock. It's different, but I think it kind of twisted people's minds a little bit to start creating some really cool music. So this was along with the greats in the dawn of punk and alternative type of music, is this incredible Velvet Underground and Nico. All right, couldn't have a top 10 without this. Number 7, Elvis Presley, 1956. Now, I'm not a huge Elvis guy. This album is different. This is an incredible record, and at the time was totally groundbreaking. It was sped up country music that actually grew a new rock and roll body. Elvis was this, everybody loved it. It would get people going. It was energetic. It was just different for that time. Rock and roll wouldn't be what it is without Elvis. The Beatles really changed things, but they took a lot from Buddy Holly and Elvis. This record, without this record, music wouldn't be what it is today. And so if you haven't heard it in a while, go back and listen to it with the ear that maybe like at that time, it wasn't happening. It was just killer. But it's a great record. As far as Elvis is concerned, that's the record to have in my opinion. Number 6. Holy moly, guys. This is one of my favorite records of all time. And I will say that till I'm blue in the face. This is the Stooges. Self-titled 1969. This is the original US press with the label that doesn't even say their name on it. It's tough to find. Us record collectors are crazy about stuff like that. But this is the Stooges, 1969, incredible record. This was one of those. It's very innovative. It was genre defining. Without this, punk rock probably wouldn't exist. Between David Bowie and Iggy Pop, they had this just love child that was punk. But they were so different, so unique, so high energetic, crazy, drug addicted, talented people. But like Iggy Pop's such a talented dude. You know, there's no telling what his music would have been like if drugs weren't a factor. But these songs are highly energetic, incredible energy, like just raw. I mean, and I think this is breaking people's brains. They would come out just to see his stage show, and it's so much inspired people like the Ramones and the Sex Pistols that really got punk going, but also just like hard rock in general. This changed the way people sang. This changed the way people played. This was, you know, and just at the time they didn't even care. They were just happy to be expressing themselves the way they wanted to. It's wild. It's crazy. This is essential rock and roll. If you haven't heard of the Stooges, one of my absolute favorites. Number 5 is King Crimson and the Court of the Crimson King. As far as I'm concerned, this is the greatest prog album that ever exists. They were so tight, so together. They had influences from, like, you could hear some more free jazz flow and stuff going on in here, and also just really tight progressive rock. It was just groundbreaking for the time. Amazing, like 21st Century Schizoid Man was just so it's such an incredible song, and it was just different, but it still was palatable enough for people to really hear it and gravitate to it and like it. So I think this is one that if you're wanting to get into progressive rock or you've never heard it, I remember for the longest time I would see this album places and I'd be like, what is that screaming guy? This is the Court of the Crimson King, King Crimson. Amazing, amazing band, but this is the album that kind of brought everybody into it. Incredible stuff. I love it so much. Number 5. Oh, and I also want to show this. That's the original master recording. It's kind of tough to get, audio file version. And this is just a little nugget. I like to throw a little record collector nerd nuggets at you, but this is an original Vertigo press from New Zealand. New Zealand was the only country that put it on Vertigo. So, for you record nerds, you'll enjoy that little tidbit. Number 4 is The Doors, 1967. Wham! This is Japanese pressing, but what to say about this record? I don't even have notes, guys. I'm going off my brain. This is one of those records that is 1967, early psychedelic. This is, I mean, a lot of people, this wasn't the first psychedelic record, but as far as like mainstream on the radio where everybody, this really, really turned a lot of people on to psychedelic music. Not to mention, I've mentioned it 1,000 times before, but this album sold so well and was just so different. Elektra had a ton of extra money, so they went around signing all kinds of psychedelic bands, one of them being the Stooges. So this is also kind of to thank for punk rock in general, but it was such an important record, influenced so many people. It spawned a lot of innovation and inspiration and creativity. So I will count it as number 4. Number 3. Hard not to put this at number 1, but what do you do? Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced? Are you kidding? Amazing record. Jimi Hendrix, when this came out, you know, I can't imagine a world where no one knew who Jimi Hendrix was, but that's where we were when this album came out. This was his debut, and he had this really tight rhythm section. He was the guitar player. A mixture of blues and rock and pop all together. Great songs, psychedelic, a little psychedelic tinge to it. Great drums, great bass. Phenomenal record. And I mean, and when you think about like the 60s music and psychedelic music and all that stuff, like one of the most iconic pictures is seeing like Hendrix at Woodstock, you know, playing Purple Haze or Star Spangled Banner. This is what started it all. Hendrix was such a huge part of that scene. And this album, every single song on here is fire. Okay, number 2 is Black Sabbath, 1970. Now, I'll show you a couple really cool pressings of this I have. This is an original white label promo. This went out to the radio stations so they could play it on the radio. This is an original UK Vertigo pressing. we'll use this one for the purposes of this video. But this is the birth of metal. You know, was such a unique sound, such a unique band, and this album was so important for the whole metal scene. Ozzy Osbourne had this just like really incredible charismatic vocals, Tony Iommi, incredible guitar. It was a dark sound, but it was so rich and so good and so tight. And it really, like, the way that this album is formatted, so many metal bands ripped off the riffs on this record and ripped off the compositions of this record, and they didn't rip them off, but they used them and changed them and kind of adapted them to what they wanted to sound like. But this super important album, obviously in the metal scene and the rock and roll scene, I mean, when you turn on Black Sabbath, people are ready to party. Number one, if you know me, you know what this is. You don't even have to guess. Led Zeppelin 1. This is the original. This is actually a really rare version, a US version with that tan and purple label. This is original US press, but it actually has Jimmy Page a little bit louder in the mix. This is just a rare label, rare variation, a little bit different mix, so it makes it kind of collectible because Led Zeppelin fans are crazy and record collectors are crazy, and when you put them in the same bowl together, it gets wild. Led Zeppelin 1, you know, it came out, I mean, you guys know the story, right? Yeah, you had Jimmy Page, he was in the Yardbirds. He went to go start his own band. So before they knew what the name of the band was, you know, they were saying there was the new Yardbirds, you know. They come out, you know, you've got Robert Plant, no one's ever heard of him. John Bonham, no one's ever heard of him. John Paul Jones, he's played on a couple little things before, but no one's really ever heard much from him either. Jimmy Page was the superstar of the group. He was the producer. He was the brains behind the operation, but Robert Plant's electric vocals, I mean, and they were playing all these blues numbers and they were changing them. A lot of people give him flack for stealing, you know, but everybody did it. The Stones did it. You know, Sure Zeppelin a little bit more blatantly did it and didn't credit as well as the Stones did, but we won't get into that. Incredible record. This was unavoidable. If you had the radio on back in 1969, you were hearing this. You were hearing Led Zeppelin 2. This was just the jumping off point of an incredible career that Led Zeppelin would be in. As far as British rock goes, or any rock, this is the greatest band of all time, as far as I'm concerned, if you care about my opinion. Well, you had to have heard it for the first time and been like, who are these guys? This is incredible. You know, they were taking blues numbers and they were putting a really high energy rock and roll feel to it. They had some numbers of their own. But you guys know the whole story. You've heard this album. Led Zeppelin 1 is my pick for the absolute #1 best debut album of all time. Thank y'all for watching this video. Like I said, if you liked it, hit that subscribe button. That would help me out a ton. Follow us on Instagram. You know, we have a Facebook too. And you can hit the links in the below if you want to buy t-shirts and all that stuff. Thanks for supporting the channel. We'll see you guys next.